Hello, hello, hello. How are we? I think I am live. Let me just check. Let me just change probably the Twitch because it probably says the wrong Grand Prix. And it's qualifying. Done. Short stream. Live. Normal stream. Maybe live. How are we all doing? Singapore, my favorite track of the year. The best track of the year. I will have no one say otherwise. It's on the wall. I know that the track map on the wall is wrong. We move. I couldn't be bothered to get a brand new one just because they decided to take Grandstand out for no reason. Hello, hello. Hello, Pug. Hello, Josh. Oh, I haven't got the chat loaded up on the screen. That's why it's not coming through. It's like, why is it not coming through? Where is everyone? Everyone is here. It's my fault. Can I load the chat up on the screen? That's the question. Singapore is goated? I believe so. I believe so. It's the best track. Okay. Is maybe not the best track in terms of everything going perfectly every single race. You know, it's not an absolute banger every single season, but it's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good, is all I will say. There we go. There's Streambot. Now we can get the live chat going. And now I can see everyone. Hello, Abar. Hello, Kelly. How's it going? Why is this not clicking into gear for me? Connect. Please connect. Please connect. There we go. Now I can actually see everybody's chats. And more. How have we all been doing? We have been, well, I've been working very, very hard on Crash Happy Bits and Pieces. If you haven't signed up to the Crash Happy channel yet, I don't know what you're doing. You need to get involved. Crash Happy's ready. It's underway. It's me. It's Dan No Skill. It's Mr. Pulse. It's Mr. V. It's Formula Duck. We're all in. I predict that this will be an exciting qualifying. It does feel like it's going to be competitive, doesn't it? It does feel like it's got everything set up. Oh, what is my hair doing today? Everything is kind of set up for it to be very, very qualifying. Very, very qualifying? Very, very close in terms of qualifying. And actually, I was sort of coming into this weekend and hoping it would just be a McLaren easy 1-2 in the bag, back of the net, done and dusted. It doesn't feel like it's going to be as easy, if I'm honest. Feels like it could maybe be a little bit trickier for the McLaren team, and Max Verstappen might be a bit more competitive than we were expecting. Is that a good thing? Probably yes if you're a Max fan, probably not if you're a McLaren fan. Or at least a fan of someone wanting the championship to, you know, be competitive. If you want to see a championship fight, we don't really want Max involved in it. Because I feel like he's just a little bit too far away from the rest of the pack to properly get involved. But also, he's competitive enough that he could cause a little bit of a problem for the other championship contenders. You know, Lando Norris is far enough behind at this point where we're like, we kind of need it to be a bit of a two-horse race. We need Lando to have a really, really good race and Piastri to have a pretty bad one at some point. Very, very qualifying. Very competitive qualifying is what I'll get my words out eventually. The rest of the races of the season will be like 2 a.m. Yeah, we're heading into that part of the year as well, to be fair. This is the last stream that's going to be at a reasonable time, at least for me. But everybody else around the world is probably looking forward to some Grand Prix in their time zones, to be fair. You know, Singapore just because it's a night race, it still works out quite well in the UK, doesn't it? But everything else, where are we going next? Texas, Mexico, Brazil, Vegas, Abu Dhabi, Qatar. They are all going to be pretty tricky time zones for us to contend with, aren't they? Shall we have a little chat, though? Let's catch in. Let's go Papaya. Thank you, Antonio David, for becoming... I don't know why I said your full name. Becoming a member for 38 months. 38 months. Goodness me. We hit the 3-year boundary a couple of months ago. That doesn't feel 2 months ago that you were in the 3-year club. Goodness gracious me. There we go. I finally got the chat working. That's what I was also trying to do. Hello, Niels. Hello, Rishi. Do I think there will be a new pole winner? Alonso pole. Akash says just above. He was looking pretty good, wasn't he? He was looking pretty good in free practice. The Aston Martin should go well here as well, so certainly not never say never to anything happening in Formula One, but are we going to see a Fernando Alonso pole? Maybe a 4th or 5th place, you know. And Aston Martin, we've seen Albon sneak up into 5th place a few times. Of course, last time out, we had Carlos Sainz on the podium. It's not impossible for one of those midfield cars to get in and amongst it, especially as the Mercedes cars do not look as competitive as we were maybe expecting them to. But is the Aston Martin going to be able to sneak up into a podium place or even, you know, win 33? Maybe, maybe not. I hope not, because I said to Dan No Skill it was never ever going to happen on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. And then if it happens almost instantly after I've said that, it's not a good look for me, is it? It's not a good look for me. 50 minutes from now, yeah, qualifying will start in, yeah, exactly 50 minutes from now. Getting a couple of bits sorted. Needs to get the multi-viewer up as well. But we've got a few things to talk about beforehand. First and foremost, did anyone else have their first foray into watching GT3 last weekend? I thought about streaming it. I was like, do we stream this? We're a Formula One channel. Are we delving into GT3 now just because there's a little bit of a crossover? Decided against it. But I did watch it myself, and as I said, I've not watched many GT3 races in my time, if any, all the way through in the way that I watched last weekend. But I just was so intrigued. I was so intrigued by the fact that Max Verstappen was heading over there between Grand Prix as well. Like, ridiculous from Max Verstappen, really, that he's going to have done 6 weekends in a row after Singapore. You know, the Formula One drivers on the grid at the moment, they complain, oh, there's too many races, the calendar's too full, etc., etc. Max Verstappen just casually going in and doing other Formula races, or other motorsport races, I should say, just in between Formula One weekends. Chances of Crashgate 2.0. Lance Stroll sending himself into the wall. I've been watching IMSA for a few years now. There you go. Got me into watching Formula One. So you came the other way around. Watched the GT3, but this type of GT3 was another taste. Very true. Very true. Hello, the Australian gamer. GK, hello. Glad we're early a little bit because I cannot get my words out today. But yeah, I had a little bit of a foray into watching Max Verstappen, and it got me thinking. I know the other drivers were kind of asked this on Thursday. Like, should we see more Formula One drivers just actually getting involved in other motorsports? I know that a lot of the time it's down to their contracts, and Max Verstappen certainly is. Well, once you win 4 world championships and you're the main man and the only man that is delivering for your team, you get benefits that maybe other Formula One drivers don't quite get. You know, Ollie Behrman is not in a position yet where he is established enough in Formula One that Haas are going to let him disappear for a weekend into a different type of motorsport, whilst they would be hoping he's recovering, preparing and getting ready for the Singapore Grand Prix. I think that's fair enough. They pay him a lot of money to be a Formula One driver. But Max Verstappen, you know, he's just got that ability and he's got the sense inside of that car. And they're like, well, he's a 4-time world champion. He knows what he's doing. He can do it. And I think we should see more Formula One drivers, especially in the winter break, maybe getting involved in some different motorsports and some different challenges for them. Because it was actually really nice to see and a bit refreshing to see Max Verstappen go into something a bit different and have that sort of, oh, will he be able to adapt? Will he be able to actually achieve what we're expecting from him this weekend? But he was very, very good, was Max Verstappen, and obviously got another win under his belts. It was a ridiculous September for Max Verstappen, wasn't it? Monza victory, fastest Formula One lap of all time, fastest Formula One race of all time, Grand Slam as well in Azerbaijan, pole position, wins comfortably, by far and away the best driver that weekend, gets his license for GT3, wins his first GT3 race. He's pretty unstoppable at the moment, is Max Verstappen. Like, he is absolutely on it. It's just Singapore now is sort of his kryptonite, isn't it? It's the only Grand Prix circuit on the calendar so far that Max Verstappen has not won at before. And I know he won at basically every single race in 2023, Singapore being the only one he didn't win in 2023. But at the same time, that is a ridiculous stat, isn't it? The fact that he has won at every single other circuit during his 67 Grand Prix victories that he has not managed to win in Singapore. Can he do it this year? Can he put himself back in the championship fight by winning in Singapore? We'll have to wait and see. I mean, Oscar Piastri didn't seem too upset with how Azerbaijan went overall. If you sort of looked at any of the interviews with Oscar Piastri, I mean, he is just very cool, calm and collected anyway, isn't he? But he did sort of say, well, I'm still leading the championships, you know. We're at race 18 out of 24. There's still a few races to go. It was one weekend, bit of a blip. He sort of said he got all of his mistakes hopefully out in all of one weekend, like bad qualifying, bad start to the race, bad crash into the barriers. Let's just get all of those things ticked off. They're going to happen at some point during the season. Let's get all of them ticked off in one weekend. Throw that one absolutely into the bin. And Piastri back at it here in Singapore and hoping for a much, much better weekend as he is still leading the championship. But you've got to throw that question in, haven't you? 69 points, the gap between Verstappen and Piastri. Verstappen back-to-back wins so far since we've come back from the summer break. Just feels like it's kind of destined to be in the mix, doesn't he, Max Verstappen? Not necessarily winning the championship. I think that's a little bit too far, but it's how long can he stay in contention for? Because it's only the top 5 drivers that can mathematically still win the podium, still win the championship, right? So Charles Leclerc is just about inside of touching distance of being able to win the championship if Piastri, Norris, Verstappen just decide to crash into each other literally every single Grand Prix and Charles Leclerc runs away winning every single Grand Prix from now on. It's basically the way that it needs to happen. But Max Verstappen is still within reasonable distance. He only needs like one DNF for Piastri and Norris. I know that we've just had one DNF for Piastri, and you know, you don't often get that many throughout a season, especially if you're one of the top teams. So I'm not expecting Piastri to have another one of those, but maybe, you know, Lando and Oscar just crash into one another, do Max Verstappen a massive favour, jumps up another 25 points, and all of a sudden, it's, you know, Oscar Piastri only needs to come 3rd and 2nd in the last few races, and Max Verstappen just has to keep winning, which we know he can do 10 in a row. Like, he's done it before if the car is there for him. So I like the fact that Max Verstappen is now back in the conversation. Is he realistically, for me at the moment? Not so much. But couple of races, one DNF for Piastri, one DNF for Lando Norris. Come back to me when we're at round sort of 20 and see if Max Verstappen is still within touching distance, within mathematical capability, within a reasonable doubt. You know, we don't want to have to see, like, okay, he can still win it, but Piastri has to crash out in 4 of the last 5 races. It's not realistically within contention, is it? But, you know, Max Verstappen has to win, and Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have to come 3rd or 4th in a few races. Suddenly it's like, oh, okay, maybe, just maybe, this could actually be a probability of it happening. Mathematical thing happens. The odds of Latifi being the GOAT is 100% from 100%. I mean, that is how percentages work, to be fair. I think Max will cause headaches, but not compete. Yeah, I think so as too, Josh. I think especially for Lando, this is like the worst thing that could have happened, to be honest. Like for Lando Norris, realistically, I know it could play in his favor in the fact that Max could take points away from Piastri, and that could play into Lando Norris's favor. But I think realistically, Lando Norris would have much preferred it to be just a straight fight between the two, just between him and Piastri for the rest of the season. Now you've got Max in there. It's just something else for them to worry about, isn't it? And it's something else for Lando to have to deal with. And it's another hurdle to jump where Piastri already has that lead and can kind of lean on that a little bit. We saw last season when Lando was trying to hunt down Verstappen at this point in the year, having the lead is really in your favor. Like, I know it sounds super obvious, but being top of the championship has a benefit to the final few races of the season because you can start to sort of play the numbers a little bit. And we saw Verstappen doing that, you know. We saw Verstappen running Lando Norris wide in Texas and in Mexico, and we knew that that was Max Verstappen playing the game a little bit. He wasn't going to do that to George Russell or Carlos Sainz in a Ferrari. You know, he was leaning into Lando Norris quite a lot and battling Lando Norris quite a lot last year was Max. And Piastri, although Piastri I don't think has that like real venom about him that Max Verstappen does have sometimes, he can still do that, right? He can still run Lando Norris wide a little bit, maybe cost him a couple of positions. And we know that it's really hard to overtake in these cars this year. And we know that, you know, if Oscar can push Lando Norris wide and cost Lando Norris maybe 2 or 3 places, he drops behind a Russell, a Leclerc, a Kimi Antonelli, and then it costs him a few laps to make up those positions again and get past those drivers once more. Suddenly you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's played into his favor quite a bit. Yeah, exactly. Max also can start to be not unusually aggressive, I wouldn't say, but certainly more aggressive. I think he knows it's not super realistic. He still needs a lot of things to go into his favor. Like Max Verstappen, he needs the 2 McLarens to basically hit into each other. Like the 2 McLarens hit into each other. Max Verstappen gets another win. Say it happens this weekend and Max Verstappen jumps up to 280 points, so he's 19 behind Lando Norris. Then I think it's realistic. But as I say, he needs both of those drivers to have another horror weekend. And they just had one in Azerbaijan. You know, when's the last time McLaren had back-to-back absolutely horrendous weekends? Probably towards the beginning of 2023, maybe even 2022. Apart from that, they've been very, very consistent and been able to deal with the problems that have been in front of them fairly well. Max is usually aggressive, like other champions. Very true. Very true. Moving down the list a little bit, though. George Russell, 212 points right there. Is he, you know, in contention for 3rd place? Can we see him jumping Max Verstappen? Probably not anymore. A little bit of a no man's land, possibly, for George Russell at this point. And therefore, I think he'll want to win, though. I know he's got a win in Canada. Another win for Mercedes this season would sort of be the goal, I think, for George Russell. There's not too much else that he's battling for at this point. Charles Leclerc, similarly. I think Charles Leclerc's in a bit of a no man's land now in terms of the championship. And again, is probably just aiming for that one win for Ferrari this year. It'd be weird to have a year without Ferrari getting any kind of victory. I know you've got Lewis Hamilton's win in the sprint in China. How much do you really give that? Lewis Hamilton probably really likes that, considering he's also sort of 44 points off of his teammate Charles Leclerc. Kimi Antonelli, I think, needs to keep Alex Albon at bay. There's an 8-point gap between them now. I think that 8-point gap needs to grow before the end of the season, to be honest, because I can see Alex Albon certainly getting another 8 points on the board. Not saying that Kimi Antonelli will get none, but it's not a huge swing, and we have seen Alex Albon just ahead of Kimi Antonelli in the championship order just a couple of weeks ago. So needs to continue. Kimi Antonelli needs to do a little bit better inside of that Mercedes car. Coming up some really tough weekends, though, for the rookies. I think that's the problem that they might have in front of them. you know, it's a nice portion of the season, I think, when you're in that European stint, just because the time zones are fairly similar. You can get yourself into a bit of a better routine. Doesn't take quite the damage on the body that this stint, I think, does, where you've got Singapore, then Texas, then Mexico. Mexico's a really tough weekend on the body. Singapore, probably the toughest weekend on the body. And then you go into a really, really tricky... Is it a triple header? Yeah, it is. Brazil, Vegas. Oh, no, sorry. There is a weekend between Brazil and Vegas. But 3 out of 4 weekends where you've got Brazil, then Vegas, then Qatar. And then, oh, sorry, it's a triple header between Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi to finish the season. Like, I feel like that's where we're really going to start to see the fatigue, specifically in the rookies, come to the fore. You know, you're finishing the season, your first full season in Formula One. You've just had really tricky time zones where you're swapping from Mexico and Vegas and Texas, and like you're trying to go back and forth between all of those places. And then, yeah, you've got this really tricky Vegas, Qatar, Abu Dhabi triple header to end. And yeah, as Josh said in the chat, Qatar is an absolute killer when it comes to just putting your body through that weekend. So I could see it being that being a real tough portion of the season, which is why I'm hoping Kimi Antonelli will get some points on the board before that. Hopefully, well, actually, Mercedes not looking good this weekend, but Texas, I would hope Mercedes are there. Vegas is one of those ones I think they will be competitive, but as I say, then that's in that awkward kind of portion of the season, so it might be a little bit too late for him. I don't know. We'll wait and see with Kimi Antonelli. I feel like we're too harsh on him considering how young he actually is. I did the maths on it the other day, and it's like, if he wins the championship in his 5th season, he'll still be the youngest Formula One champion there ever was. So he's got another 4 seasons before he even gets to like Sebastian Vettel championship winning age. So that's where Kimi Antonelli is right now. He is super, super young. And I think we forget that sometimes. As I mentioned, Alex Albon now clear of the midfield battle. I was hopeful that maybe, you know, a Hadjar or Hulkenberg could be competitive with Alex Albon towards the end of the season, but he's just continued to rack up those points. I know the worst weekend for him last weekend in Azerbaijan, but feels like it's done and dusted now for Alex Albon, most certainly. Kimi does well when I praise Hadjar. That's very true. That's very true indeed. Need to give him some praise. I don't know. Hadjar wasn't the one last weekend, was he? He was Liam Lawson who got the major points on the board for Racing Bulls. It was kind of a weird weekend. It was like we've spent all of the season sort of praising Albon, praising Hadjar, and it was Sainz and Lawson who actually turned up last time out in Azerbaijan, wasn't it? They kind of came to the fore where we haven't seen them jump up to the top of the tree before. I'm from Singapore. I'm in the stands right now. Alexander, you lucky, lucky person. It's on my bucket list. Singapore is like top 1 of, if you ask me, any track, here's a ticket, you can go. I would pick Singapore every single day of the week. But we were talking about sort of Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, the Williamses, the midfield battle. Feels like the constructor standings is kind of taking shape a little bit. Williams, I feel like, are there now. 30 points for Racing Bulls, 40 points for Aston Martin. Without Williams scoring any more is going to be pretty dang tough. Like, again, they've scored 70 points all season, and we've not got that many races left. So it would need to be another really, really incredible weekend for Lawson or Hadjar. And again, like, even when they do, Hadjar's got a podium, Lawson last time out in Azerbaijan, like, they have been doing really, really well since the summer break, but Williams are continuing to do well as well. So I feel like Williams are kind of safe. Aston Martin are the one, though. 62 points, just 10 points behind Racing Bulls. This weekend needs to be a big weekend because Singapore is one of those tracks that really should suit the Aston Martin. But then we're going to places like Mexico that always suit the RB cars and the Honda powered cars. So it needs to happen now for Aston Martin. They need to get those points back on the board. Sauber have kind of hit a little bit of a lull. I think, again, coming towards the end of the season for them, they know that they're becoming Audi next year. They had a big bump when it came to Spain. They had a lovely period just before the summer break where they were really picking up some points. And don't get me wrong, Bortoletto's still been pretty good, but Hulkenberg in qualifying has had some ups and downs and has not been very good in the last, 7 races now, I think, where Bortoletto has out-qualified his teammate. So I'm not expecting too much more from the Stake Sauber guys. Similarly from Haas, I think it's just kind of hit a little bit of a lull. They've kind of come towards the end of their cycle within this 2025 regulations, and they know 2026 is coming. And especially for a really small team like Haas, they need to be committed to next season and kind of get ahead of the game before anybody else. And Alpine, you never know with Alpine. Like last year, we thought they were dead and buried, and then they got a double podium in Brazil, and suddenly they were back in contention for being best of the rest all of a sudden. So I don't think we're going to see Alpine do anything special. I just don't think we're going to see Colapinto get any points. Like, I know Colapinto has certainly not been horrendous. I don't think he's been as bad as people are like sometimes making out, but I do think he's not good enough, and therefore, or at least not good enough in that Alpine compared to Pierre Gasly, and therefore I just can't see much happening inside of that Alpine team. Maybe again a Gasly getting 5-10 points maximum before the end of the season, but apart from that, unless they have a ridiculous weekend like they did in Brazil last year and it just all comes together for them and the stars align for the French team. Hello, when is it starting? We're about, half an hour away, possibly? Just having a little chat. Thoughts on Lando's comments about Max? Yeah, that was an interesting one, wasn't it? I think he has a point to an extent. Like, I can see where he's coming from in one sense of the word, but so for anybody who missed it, Lando Norris was talking about Max Verstappen. He was asked a little bit about Max Verstappen winning the last couple of races and also going into GT3, and kind of saying that, you know, Max is doing incredibly well in all of these different categories of motorsport, 4-time world champion. And Lando was kind of asked about it, and Lando said, well, if I was brought up by 2 racing drivers and put into a go-kart at 4 years old, and sort of went on about how Max Verstappen, sort of a little bit of a nepo Formula One baby, I guess, like was kind of calling out Max Verstappen for having more testing time than anybody else and having more Formula One running and more karting running than anybody else because of the situation that he was born into. And that's why he thinks Max Verstappen is such an incredible driver. And of course that leans into it. Like, the reason that I think Max is so good in the wet is it goes all the way back to when he was karting at such a young age, and Jos was teaching him about adapting and understanding the tires and getting a feel for the race car that you are in. And he's done that since he was 4 years old. So you can understand that Max Verstappen had a helping hand. And I just also think that, you know, Lando could have done some of the things that Max has done. Okay, maybe Lando wasn't into karting at 4 years old and wasn't born to be a Formula One driver. Like, we know that Lando was into motorbikes before he was into karting and things like that. But I think there's other things that Max does where he just sort of lives and breathes racing that Lando Norris certainly could have done as well. Like the amount of sim racing that Max Verstappen does, for instance. I think, you know, any Formula One driver could do that, but they don't. And I think it's because Max is so passionate about it. Max absolutely loves motor racing and he lives it, he breathes it, he wants to do it all of the time. Whereas other drivers on the grid have other things that they're interested in. You know, Max Verstappen doesn't have the sort of broad span of things that sometimes some of the other racers do. Max Verstappen probably can't play the piano, for instance, like Charles Leclerc can, or doesn't own a quadrant like Lando Norris does. But he probably also doesn't have that kind of passion for it. His passion is motorsport. And Lando Norris could go home every single weekend and sim race for 20 hours. Like, there's nothing stopping him from doing that. So I can understand Lando Norris's perspective in one avenue. I do think it was just a little bit bitter, wasn't it? It was like a little bit bitter from Lando Norris. I think realistically, Max Verstappen is just incredibly talented and works really hard and has put the hours in. to become one of the best Formula One drivers. Possibly by the time he retires, I think we will look back at Max Verstappen and put him into that greatest of all time. I can see it happening. I know that it's a little bit of a debate right now. You can kind of chuck him in there with your Schumachers, your Sennas, your Jim Clarks if you really want to, your Lewis Hamiltons of this world, although Hamilton hasn't retired yet. You know, I think we can start to put Max Verstappen in that conversation. He certainly is in that conversation. I think the way that it's going and the things that Max Verstappen does, you know, if he gets another chance at a Formula One World Championship with whichever team it may be, if it's Red Bull, if it's Mercedes, if it's Aston Martin in the future, and he goes on another win streak, like gets himself up to nearing 100 wins, but then also goes on to win GT3 championships, maybe wins Le Mans 24 hours or Nürburgring 24 hours as well. I think we will look back at Max Verstappen, you know, 20 years time when he's fully retired, he's stopped racing. Well, if he ever stops racing, I don't know if he will. That's the thing with Max. He absolutely loves it. I think we'll look back and be like, yeah, Max is kind of clear of the rest. Like, as much as I'd love it to be more of a conversation piece at this point, I think Max Verstappen is so good compared to the rest. But yeah, I think it was a little bit bitter from Lando Norris, wasn't it? Those comments of, you know, Max Verstappen was given all of the things he needed to become one of the greatest drivers ever. Lando Norris also, you know, pretty privileged background. I don't think he can complain too much about where he started and where he's come from compared to the rest of the grid as well. But we'll move on a little bit from that. As I say, we'll get into the predictions. Weather report. I mean, well, it's going to be very, very warm indeed. It's the first ever Formula One, or is it, heat warning race. So we've got cooling vests on all of the drivers. We've got the brand new cooling systems attached to the front of the cars as well. Like, I think this is going to be a bit of a weird weekend. There's some ups and downs in terms of like weight and ballast, and Max Verstappen wasn't very happy about the cooling vests, to be honest. But it is our first ever cooling vest race. In fact, so let's have a little look at it. The FIA has declared a heat hazard, meaning they're running the new cooling vest system, which is effectively mandatory for every single car. And the system also has like cooling pumps with liquid going through the vest to cool the drivers down. They're hoping, you know, this weekend will be the first weekend they've run it so that there's no problems with that. But there's also some little worries here and there about the weight of the things that they have to put onto the car and how the ballast will be set up, and having to change the way that the cars are managed due to this weather heat warning. Let me see if I can find the article of it. So the rules require that the heat hazard in place, all components that comprise the cooling system must be fitted to the car and in working order. However, drivers have the option of not wearing the actual vest system if they feel like the tubing elements are too uncomfortable. The rumors state in such circumstances, all other components, including the cooling medium for the driver system, must be fitted. In addition, the difference in mass between the driver's personal equipment normally used and any items of the driver's personal equipment that form part of the systems must be compensated by fitting a 0.5 kilogram ballast in the cockpit. So that's the thing that they were talking about, and the thing they were discussing, you know, will the drivers just take the ballast because they can put it somewhere in the cockpit where maybe they can, it's only 0.5 kilograms, so you wouldn't imagine it would make that much of a difference, but you never know with these Formula One cars. You never know with Formula One teams. They're trying to find the tiniest little thing. But basically that comes into effect when temperatures are going to reach 31 degrees Celsius and above. And I mean, last time out in Singapore, we did have the driver's cockpits reaching up to 60 degrees Celsius throughout the Grand Prix. And we saw, who was it, George Russell last year with heat stroke after the race. So, I mean, it makes sense that they're putting this cooling system in place. We're not trying to kill drivers or, you know, put them through absolute horrendousness just by like sweating them out. And, you know, you go back to, was it Bahrain? I think a few years ago, well, a long time ago now, because I remember Fernando Alonso sitting at the side of the track, I think in Renault colours, maybe McLaren colours, but long time ago now, where temperatures were like in the 40 degrees Celsius and the drivers were just literally falling as they were getting out of the car. Like, we don't actually want to see that. We want to see them put under stress. Don't get me wrong. It is a Formula One race and it is a sport, but we want the competitiveness to come from the cars and being able to fight with one another out on track. We don't want the competitiveness to come from last man standing. Whichever driver can survive 60, 70 degrees Celsius for the longest will go on to win the race. So I think, yeah, I understand why they've decided to do it. But it'd be interesting to see what the drivers think. As I say, Max Verstappen's already not a fan, but it'd be interesting to see what everybody else kind of says after the fact. I think after the race is when it comes into play, really, because, you know, they've been in the cars for free practice sessions and things like that, but until you're in the car for an hour and a half to 2 hours, like, come back to me then and tell me if it was worthwhile, because I think that's when it kind of takes the cake. Oh, talking about Christian Horner. Yeah, Christian Horner, could he come back with a 12th team? I don't know. Christian Horner just feels like he's in a bit of a weird place, obviously. Now cut ties with Red Bull, got that £52 million paycheck. Don't mind if I do. Maybe you could send me just a little sliver of that, Christian, in the post. That'd be brilliant. But yeah, Christian Horner leaving Red Bull, the severance package is paid, now looking to return to the F1 paddock for 2026. There's been a lot of rumours, isn't there, of him being sort of flirting with various different outfits. There's potential avenues. I think it was Aston Martin. Oh, I can't remember his name, though. Somebody from Aston Martin came out and said that they'd kind of had a little chat with Christian Horner. Ayuka Matsu came out and said that Haas had a little chat with Christian Horner, and that Christian Horner was kind of trying to get himself a situation somewhere, but nothing's really come to fruition, which I think is why we've then seen the next step of this rumor mill that has come around, and we're now seeing Christian Horner. Will he start his own team? Will he be the main man for the 12th team in Formula One in some kind of way? And I can understand it. You know, he didn't start Red Bull, but he basically started Red Bull. Like, I know that they bought Jaguar, and the Jaguar Formula One team was already running for a little while, and they bought it from Jackie Stewart. So, like, it goes back a few years before Red Bull started. But he did come in right at the ground level with Red Bull. You know, he was their team principal from their first year in Formula One, that year that they bought in to Jaguar and became a full-time Formula One team. He was there from then all the way through until, a couple of months ago. So you can understand why him going on to creating his own Formula One team isn't as huge of a jump as maybe people are saying. There's also been rumors about him possibly going in and doing something with Alpine, because Alpine are kind of looking like maybe they might end up selling. You know, they're going from Renault engines to just Mercedes engines. They're selling off various little pieces of the company. Flavio Briatore is getting rid of everyone he possibly can to save as much money as possible. So I feel like there's a move where maybe it's not a 12 Formula One team, it's the Alpine Formula One team. But a 12 Formula One team would be very, very interesting. Would it be in a similar vein to the way Gunther Steiner kind of put together Haas in 2016? Quite possibly. You know, there's been rumors of a 12 Formula One team sort of joining in 2028. We know we've got Cadillac joining next year to become the 11th Formula One team for 2026. So 2028 to sort of 2030, I feel like would be the next possible opportunity for somebody to join the grid in that fashion. Gives Christian Horner a couple of years to get the wheels in motion. So I don't think it's like completely fanciful to imagine that Christian Horner might want to make the 12th Formula One team in his image. Whether it would be like Horner Racing, I don't think so, but I'm sure he could find a backer of some kind. How would it look, though? What would it look like? And would would anybody, I suppose people would want to go over there just because it's an opportunity to work in Formula One. But we saw a lot of the big names at Red Bull moving away from Red Bull before Christian Horner was sacked, right? You know, there's a lot of big movers and shakers that were done with the Christian Horner regime. So he would really need to put some work into it. And that's the thing. He's just got $52 million from Red Bull. I'm sure he's also earned a pretty penny for being the team principal at Red Bull and winning various drivers and constructors championships throughout the years as well. I don't know if he needs it. I don't know if he needs the hassle of starting a Formula One team from scratch. Like Gunther Steiner, you could kind of understand why he might do it. Like, I'm not saying Gunther Steiner absolutely needed the cash, but Christian Horner really, really doesn't need the cash. Like, Christian Horner is living a very, very comfortable life right now. And I don't know. It depends how much passion he's got for it. His team would be called Horn-E. Brilliant. Porsche with Horner. Yeah, that's always been the rumor, hasn't it? Porsche were linked with Red Bull for so many years. But then he got the Ford link was when Horner was still in charge of Red Bull. So maybe he's got an American backing of some kind that he could go to. I know Cadillac are now in. Ford are going to be with Red Bull next year, but is there another American outfit that wants to get involved in Formula One whilst it's really booming inside of the American market? Quite possibly. Do I think that Aston Martin will cook under the 2026 regulations alongside Mercedes and even Williams? I think 2026 is still way too early to start doing proper predictions. Would I like to see it? Most certainly. I'd love to see Fernando Alonso. Maybe not. Would I like to see him win a championship? I think everybody would like to see him win another championship. But if Aston Martin can really, really cook 2026, just being competitive, seeing Fernando Alonso in a competitive outfit for one last year, does feel like it's going to be his last year. He's kind of started to talk about it quite a bit, hasn't he? The fact that he'll step away at some point soon, which is why there's also the links to Max Verstappen that are just happening all of the time. Red Bull livery will finally change after many years. I don't think so. I don't think Christian Horner was in charge of the Red Bull livery. I think Red Bull are in charge of the Red Bull livery. And they've kept it the same. I understand why they keep it the same. It's brand recognition. You look at any Red Bull car and you know it's a Red Bull car. Whereas, the McLarens have kind of gone through the Vodafone era and then the Papaya eras and things like that. You don't see a McLaren car and know it's a McLaren. You do now because it's got the orange on it. But previously, if I showed you a picture of a McLaren car from the 90s or the 80s or the 70s, you might, as a new Formula One fan, you wouldn't be like, definitely that's a McLaren car. Whereas every single Red Bull car you go, that is a Red Bull car. Instantaneously that is a Red Bull car. From the rumors, the Mercedes powered teams might have a good advantage. Honda are doing good with their engine. That's the thing, right? Honda versus Mercedes. We're saying that the Mercedes powered teams are going to be the best. So that's still Williams, McLaren and Mercedes, obviously. Whereas, Honda need to also do their bit. Adrian Newey needs to do their bit as well. So it's a lot of things have got to come together for that to really work when it comes to Aston Martin. I hope it does. Don't get me wrong. I really hope it does. But will it? I think that's the other thing. Final thing, though, because we're 14 minutes away from the start of the race. We haven't even talked about predictions yet, guys. We've had so much to cover. I think there's just been quite a few different news stories breaking and a few different discussion topics that are worth sinking your teeth into over the last few days, which has been great. And we have been sinking our teeth into them over on the Crash Happy channel. If you're looking for a brand new Formula One podcast that is a little bit more relaxed than the standard, we're not putting ourselves competing with the race or the Formula One podcast, for instance, where you're going to get ridiculous insight from people who have worked in the sport or anything like that. We're putting ourselves in the fan category. It's 5 fans. We all absolutely love the sport. We all want the sport to be incredibly competitive for the future. And we're just really looking forward to building something a little bit more. Dan No Skill mentioned. Dan No Skill will always be mentioned. He's one of my favorite people on the internet. Wonderful man, wonderful person, part of Crash Happy. But don't let him know that, because I do like to bully him just a little bit. Me and Dan have got a love-hate relationship. You wouldn't say the podcast is that chill. Probably not chill. It's more relaxed. Like, we're not going through statistics. We're not going to talk about the 2.5 seconds gained over the last 3 seasons or anything like that. It's not that kind of podcast where we're not going to break down that kind of insight, but it's just a bit of fun. Just a bit of fun. And yes, we had Arava. Cannot get my words out today. As the first guest on the most recent episode as well. There have been some chaotic moments indeed. But we are talking predictions. Who do you think is going to be there? I think, again, just looking at the qualifying pace from the free practice sessions that we've seen, McLaren look really solid. I think Red Bull look the second fastest team, particularly in the hands of Max Verstappen. Then probably Ferrari. So if you're going to go for a little bit of an outside shout, maybe a Charles Leclerc podium, something like that could be reasonable. Then outside of that, I think in terms of qualifying today, Racing Bulls look pretty good. Mercedes look pretty good. Aston Martin look pretty good. I'm expecting, your Alpines, your Saubers, your Hasses to drop out in Q1, Q2. Probably a Williams in there as well, maybe. I'm not reinventing the wheel here, but I'm just sort of thinking out loud. I think those 3, the Williams is a bit. And then maybe one of the Aston Martins, both of the Racing Bulls through, and one of the big boys, maybe a Sonoda or an Antonelli dropping out in Q2 as well, just opening that door a little bit for somebody else. Although it's been Lewis Hamilton as well, has not been incredible in qualifying this year, so maybe he drops out in a Q2 and again just sort of opens that door for an Aston Martin or a Racing Bulls to be up in that top 10. No way Charles is cooked. Okay. I think Ferrari looks, in terms of qualifying pace, I think they'll still be comfortably inside of the top 10. Like, I don't think they're going to be, out in Q1, Q2. I think they're going to be comfortably inside the top 10 is what I was kind of hinting at. I think, I could see Charles starting from the 3rd row of the grid, like starting 5th or 6th, I certainly think that could happen. I don't think they're that cooked. I think the Ferraris will be quicker than the Mercedes cars. But that's just me. Can we get a rest in peace for Roscoe? Yes, of course. Of course, I actually didn't mention that so far. Very sad news. Always sad. My dog, or my family dog, I should say, because I haven't lived with it, but my parents' dog passed away maybe a month ago now. It's a tough time. It's not fun. It's a big change, but he's had Roscoe for a very long time. Sure, he's got incredible memories for it. And yeah, bless him. Sad to see him go, but he's probably had one of the best lives of any dog ever. So he'll be pretty happy with that. Should we get into your predictions though? Because as I said, that's kind of my vague predictions for qualifying today. I think we'll have both of the McLarens in the top 10, a Red Bull of Max Verstappen. Well, we'll have both of the McLarens on the front 2 rows. We'll have Max Verstappen on the front 2 rows. We'll have a Ferrari sort of 2nd row or 3rd row. Then the Racing Bulls will be in the top 10 probably, or at least one of the Racing Bulls will be in the top 10. Russell will be in there. Antonelli, maybe not so. An Aston Martin in the top 10. Maybe a Williams in the top 10 probably. I can't imagine neither of the Hasses are getting into the top 10. Neither of the Kick Sauber cars are getting into the top 10. Neither of the Alpines are getting into the top 10. It's kind of where I'm looking at it right now. But what did you guys think? Let's have a little look at your predictions. Again, if you want to get involved in the predictions, head over to the community tab on a race week. I released the predictions there, and you can get yours in and put your votes against everybody else's. These were the predictions of the people. I take all of your votes and compile them together, and unanimously, it was not actually that, competitive. I was expecting maybe a few more people would go for Max to win this weekend after he's on a little bit of a streak, or maybe Piastri to bounce back a little bit more. But maybe it's just looking back at last year and how good Lando Norris was in last year's Singapore Grand Prix. We have got a lot of people going for Lando Norris to win this Singapore Grand Prix weekend. He ended up being top of the tree by a considerable margin to Max Verstappen in second and Oscar Piastri in third. So you guys are expecting a Lando Verstappen Piastri podium. Is it that out there? Probably not. Is it, maybe unexpected to see Max Verstappen between the two McLarens? Again, maybe over the last couple of weekends, maybe not. If I asked you that 10 races ago, would have maybe been slightly different. You guys have also voted for Tsunoda to be the good surprise of the weekend, the positive surprise of the weekend. P6 for Tsunoda last time out, his best race inside of a Red Bull car by a considerable margin last time out in Azerbaijan. So Tsunoda looking to make gains on that again and step forward into being a little bit more competitive inside of that Red Bull car, possibly even closing the gap in the constructor standings. What is it now? It's only 14 points. I thought it was even less than that. 14 points Red Bull behind Ferrari, and then another 4 points to Mercedes. Like, Max Verstappen has been holding the fort down, don't get me wrong, but it's not impossible that Red Bull finish in second place in the constructor standings, which, again, a few races ago, we would not have been saying. But Max Verstappen has been sublime. And George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, they've kind of dropped the ball a little bit since the summer break, haven't they? They haven't been absolutely top draw in every single race since. So I think going for Yuki Tsunoda as a good surprise. I quite like everybody expecting the best team of the weekend to be McLaren. I don't think we've had a weekend this year where it hasn't been McLaren. You guys expecting McLaren to get those points on the board and secure the Constructors' Championship. Yeah, they need a 303-point gap to the next best team in the Constructors' standings. So currently they have a, 342? Yeah, 342-point gap to the next best in the Constructors. They need a 303-point gap going into next weekend to secure it. Looking very, very likely. They just need to outscore Mercedes by the tiniest of margins. Well, not even outscore Mercedes, really. They just need to not be outscored by Mercedes by a ridiculous chunk. Basically, it's guaranteed. We were expecting it to happen last time out, but then Oscar Piastri decided to pin it in the wall, and Lando Norris decided to finish, P7. So McLaren this time around is basically guaranteed that they will seal the Constructors' Championship at this point. When it comes to McLaren, yeah. So McLaren will get the Constructors' Championship done, and therefore I can understand why they have been voted the best team of the weekend. Do we have a weekend without McLaren being the best in 2025? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's been every single weekend. I might have to go back through the predictions. I've still got all the pictures that I make, all the graphics that I make. So I might have to go back through and actually see, was there any weekend where it was not McLaren? You guys, in terms of the struggle, you've put Franco Colapinto. I can see this one, The fact that Franco Colapinto kind of crashed last year in Vegas, where it was, street track, street circuit. He crashed last time out in Baku as well. He doesn't like a wall, does Franco Colapinto, and that Alpine car is still not looking great, is it? So I could certainly see Franco Colapinto actually dropping the ball. Oh, are you guys thinking, oh, I thought the question was where you hadn't predicted McLaren to be the best. Yeah, McLaren have been outscored a good few weekends. Like, they only scored 4 points in Baku. They were certainly outscored by a lot of teams last time out, and they were outscored in Canada as well. Yeah, because Lando Norris had the DNF, and Piastri only finished 4th, so like they were outscored by Mercedes, and who finished 2nd in that race? Was it Verstappen again? Probably Red Bull. Like they've been outdone quite a few times, but I think every single predictions round they have been the predicted best team of the weekend. And then you guys have got flop team Ferrari. Just not sure, you know. I think the expectations for Ferrari have to have dropped now. Like, I know that we came into this season expecting Ferrari to be championship contenders. I think we've understood now that that is no longer their assignment. They are no longer looking like they are absolutely going to get the championships over the line. That has been a long time since we've held them to that standard. Whereas I think some people, when they do this, they're like, well, Lewis Hamilton didn't win, so that's a bad weekend for him. It's like, no. I think he's done a very good job considering the car sometimes, especially Charles Leclerc has done a pretty decent job considering the car sometimes. And therefore, I'm like, I don't know if Ferrari are going to have that bad of a weekend where we can call them the absolute flop team of the grid. But I've said things like this before, and then the worst has happened. So maybe we'll see Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton out in Q1 and Q2, not even make it into the top 10, and then, you know, crash into the barriers halfway through the race. Quali starts in 2 minutes. It does indeed. We are just getting a couple of things set up in the background. In fact, let me load up the countdown timer. 18 minutes on the board. Couple of things I just need to load up on multi-viewer. Thanks once again for multi-viewer for supporting the channel throughout the entire season once again with all of these graphics that we have every single weekend. And bada bing bada boom, here we go. So shuffle that there. Bing bing. Turn up the volume so I can hear the actual qualifying session, and we'll get underway. The papaya fairness rules dictate that if Max gains 25 and Russell gains 18 points on both drivers. Let's go indeed. The best qualifying session of the year, in my opinion. Am I biased because I just love Singapore? Yes. But I do think we will see an incredible qualifying session here, and then a decent race as well. Change the stadium part. Yeah, you can kind of say, well, you can compare the track map down there to the track map up here. Or they removed these 4 corners, so you can see that this bump does not exist. There's still this couple of corners, but these 4 corners don't exist. It's because it used to go under a grandstand, and they're doing work on that grandstand right now. So it used to go under and then in front of a grandstand. That grandstand is used for the fireworks for New Year or something. Somebody from Singapore, correct me. But they are doing some work on that grandstand, and therefore decided to get rid of those corners whilst they were working on the grandstand. And they were supposed to come back, but it's been a few years and I haven't checked in on whether that grandstand has been built yet. So I don't know if we're going to see that grandstand and that part of the track ever really come back, if I'm honest. But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. New subs, thank you. Thank you, Sally, for being in charge of the new subs. Appreciate it if everybody could hit the like button as well. Really helps out the channel and helps this stream to reach more people. We're always trying to grow over on this channel. And also, I know I've mentioned it before, but I'll mention it one more time. If you haven't headed over to the Crash Happy podcast and subscribed, me, Dan No Skill, Mr. V, Mr. Pulse, Formula Duck, all of our Formula One opinions, and just like some extra content as well. We played Gartic Phone. It got interesting. I'll leave it at that. Like, you should just go over there and watch it. Subbed, mate. Love from Derby. Ooh, I've been through Derby, never been to Derby. Maybe I'll check it out at some point. Oh yeah, it makes the racing so much better, Josh. Like it should be like this. Like the track is way better like this. But it also makes my sign wrong. So it's got its ups and downs. We are going to see some cars actually setting some lap time soon, though. Franco Colapinto out first and foremost of anybody. Is going to set the standard. Pierre Gasly, his teammate, out with him as well. Hulkenberg, Stroll, Albon, Sainz, Hamilton, Leclerc, Hadjar, Bortoletto and Lawson also out on the circuit. But the guys that we're slightly more interested in terms of the championship only just making their way to the end of the pit lane. Lando Norris ahead of championship rival Oscar Piastri out on track, and Max Verstappen also sitting just behind the McLaren pair. Let's keep an eye on Franco Colapinto's times, though, as he comes through the first sector to set a 27.2. It's not too bad of a start from Franco Colapinto at all there. Let's see how Pierre Gasly does compared to him. Oh, we haven't split the sectors. Apologies. Give me 1 second. We're currently looking at the race board. We don't want to look at the race board. We want to look at the qualifying board. Live timings. Track map. Bada bing, bada boom. Show DRS detection points. No. Show sectors. There we go. Thank you, Torque. Yeah, sector colors indeed. They're there now. You can see the first sector finishes up just between turn 6 and turn 7 through that DRS zone there. DRS zone also down between turn 13 and turn 14 is where sector 2 turns into sector 3. And then DRS also used from 14 through 15 down to 16, 17, 18, 19. And across the start-finish line is where we currently see Franco Colapinto set a 1:32.0, beaten by Nico Hulkenberg for 0.4 of a second. Hulkenberg now the fastest driver out there. Lance Stroll comes across the line, though, to set a 1:31.5. The lap times are starting to tumble, and Lando Norris has just started his flying lap. Carlos Sainz has gone quickest of anybody through the middle sector in his Williams car. This is where I bite my tongue, because I was expecting the Racing Bulls to be quicker than the Williamses here, and there's a yellow flag in the first sector. Is that Alex Albon that's made a little mistake there somewhere? It's certainly ruined Oscar Piastri's lap, as Piastri has had to slow down through turn 2 and turn 3, so Piastri is going to have to go again. It's not a fun sight for the championship leader. I think Alex Albon must have made a mistake in front of him. Lando Norris has gone quickest of anybody through the first sector, as we would have expected inside of that McLaren car. Charles Leclerc, though, goes top of the standings right now with a 1:30.9. Alex Albon comes across the line, goes 4th fastest. Here comes Isaac Hadjar to go even quicker than Charles Leclerc, just by 1/10 of a second. A 1:30.8 for the Racing Bulls car. And I think Racing Bulls are going to be very, very competitive here this weekend. We saw Lawson actually go very well here last year. Was it last year? The year before, when he took over from Daniel Ricciardo? It was the year before, wasn't it? Daniel Ricciardo raced in Singapore last year. So a year before that, we saw Liam Lawson do a very, very solid job here in Singapore. Lando Norris, though, coming around the final corner, across the line, a 1:30.5 from the closest championship contender. As I said, his teammate Oscar Piastri having to go again is not setting a fast lap time. Max Verstappen, though, is indeed. It's the fastest middle sector of anybody. The Red Bull looking planted through that middle part of the lap, and just coming around towards the final couple of corners now is Max Verstappen. Of course, we saw a big shunt from Lance Stroll through turn 19 as well last year. It's a tricky corner to get right You're right on the limit. And Max Verstappen does indeed get it through and goes to the top of the timing sheets by 2.5 tenths of a second. A 1:30.3 from the current world champion. Here comes Lewis Hamilton in his Ferrari car then. What kind of time has Hamilton got in the Scuderia? Makes that right left through 16 and 17. Very tidy indeed by Lewis Hamilton. Was getting a little bit sideways through some of the free practice sessions, but comes across the line to be the fastest man in the final sector and also the second fastest car out on track. A 1:30.5 from Lewis Hamilton. Oscar Piastri back into the garage. Also made a mistake in the middle sector, did Oscar Piastri, so decided to definitely call that lap quits. Would have had yellow flags in the first sector anyway, so I don't think would have been able to set the fastest of flying laps as it was. And yeah, there you go. There is Oscar Piastri getting annoyed at the yellow flags. He just thought Alex Albon was getting out of the way. The yellow flags were thrown. It's an interesting one, actually, because, yeah, you could argue that Alex Albon... Well, it depends. If we see Alex Albon's on board and he does actually just get out of shape and lose the car through turn 2, or was he actually manoeuvring his Williams car out of the way of Oscar Piastri, and then actually it cost Oscar Piastri more because Albon was out on the... off the track, sorry. Here comes George Russell. So we haven't seen laps yet from either of the two Mercedes cars, Ocon or Alonso, as Ollie Behrman just slots himself into the second fastest lap time of anybody so far. Just a tenth of a second off Max Verstappen. And Esteban Ocon also goes to 9th fastest overall. Maybe I was underestimating the Haas cars. I said we were definitely not going to see a Haas, an Alpine, or a Stake Sauber car into Q3. Ollie Behrman, though, has put himself between a Red Bull and a Ferrari. He'll be eyeing up that Lewis Hamilton seat in the future. And George Russell, Lewis Hamilton's ex-teammate, also displaces Lewis Hamilton. He goes 3rd fastest to push Lewis Hamilton down to 4th. Again, though, a couple attempts off Max Verstappen's time so far. We're waiting for Piastri, Antonelli, and Alonso to set flying lap times. Alonso and Piastri are just actually entering the middle sector, coming towards turn 9, Fernando Alonso, and turn 8, Oscar Piastri. And can I see where Kimi Antonelli is? Antonelli's just coming through turn 16 and 17 for you. So very soon we will have a full running order of the top 20. Still with 8.5 minutes to go, though, so more than enough time for everybody to improve, as Franco Colapinto does, to go 8th fastest overall. Kimi Antonelli has decided against it. Has come back into the pit. So Kimi Antonelli, possibly a mistake from the Italian, has not set a lap time yet and has ducked back into the pit lane. Yuki Tsunoda also all the way down in 16th place. We haven't mentioned the Japanese driver yet. A lot to do from his perspective. Max Verstappen, his teammate, currently the fastest man out on track. Just joined. Piastri hasn't done a lap yet. He has not, but he is currently just slowly coming to turn 16, moving out of the way of Pierre Gasly so that he can get a bit of space in front of him. Esteban Ocon's going to move into the pit, so Piastri is going to have a little run at a lap now. With 7 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock, though, needs to be something a little bit good from Piastri here and guarantee himself a spot inside of that top 15. At least Lewis Hamilton improves to go 0.02 of a second short of Max Verstappen in second place. So the Ferraris suddenly looking fairly decent. Hello, Just Playing. Welcome to the chat. Charles Leclerc's been quickest of anybody through the middle sector and goes 3rd fastest. Can't improve in the final part of the lap, Charles Leclerc, but does improve his time overall. And a 10th of a second now separates the top 4 drivers. Max Verstappen and then 3 Ferrari drivers behind him. As I say that, Isaac Hadjar, the Red Bull, comes to slot into top spot. The Racing Bull, I should say. Red Bull powered. And it is the, well, possibly the two teammates for 2026 sitting 1 and 2 right now. A lot of speculation about Isaac Hadjar joining Max Verstappen. He's joined them on the top of the timesheets for now. And then it is those 3 Ferrari drivers behind: Hamilton, Leclerc and Ollie Behrman driving for Haas, of course, but still Ferrari Academy signed up. George Russell behind in 6th place. Lando Norris has dropped to 7th. Here comes Oscar Piastri, his teammate, down in 19th place at the moment. Has not yet set a flying lap time after those yellow flags from Alex Albon. But here he comes across the line. He does go quicker than his teammate and goes quicker than George Russell to slot himself into 6th place. 2/10 down on Isaac Hadjar's time. Whether Oscar Piastri was just holding back a little bit there, though, because he really needed to get a time on the board. So I could understand if Oscar Piastri wasn't going absolutely hell for leather. Well, Lando Norris most certainly is, as he's just gone quickest of anybody through the first sector. So it's purple from Lando Norris, a 26.700 through the first part of the lap from Lando Norris. Here we are through sector 2 then. Lando Norris is coming around turn 13 now. Opens the DRS up as he runs down towards turn 14, and that intersection where you get to see Piastri arriving into turn 8 and Lando Norris leaving turn 14. Side by side on the track there, the two McLaren cars. Through a wall though, of course. And then Lando Norris coming down to turn 16, 17. It was purple through the middle sector from Lando Norris once more. 2 corners stand behind him and top of the timing sheets, and there it is, 2.5 tenths quicker than Isaac Hadjar, and a comfortable 129.9 from Lando Norris, the first driver into the 129s. Kimi Antonelli gets a little bit out of shape, and that's maybe why Kimi Antonelli decided against getting and there was a couple of cars just on the inside there. I think just trying to get out of the way of Kimi Antonelli more than anything, but possibly just put him off a touch. Made a little mistake through that first part of the lap, did Kimi Antonelli. And having to reset and go out again. He's just coming around turn 5 now, is Kimi Antonelli. We'll keep an eye on his first sector time. I'm imagining he's going to be able to get himself out of the bottom 5 at this point, and he's just gone quickest of anybody through the first sector. So he's looking very tidy indeed, I would say, from Kimi Antonelli, a 26.6. So he's almost a 10th of a second up on Lando Norris's fastest first sector that we just saw from the Briton. The Italian, holding nothing back, needs a lap time on the board, does Kimi Antonelli. You'd think he'd maybe hold back a little bit in reserve just to get a time up onto the timing sheets. But maybe he wants that provisional pole position and for people to be screaming his name once again, because he's got a very, very solid middle sector in front of him as well. And it's the fastest middle sector of anybody. It was getting close, and it is the fastest middle sector of anybody. Kimi Antonelli suddenly flying. Is this track improvement from Kimi Antonelli, or has he just hit the boosters? He is absolutely sensational through those first 2 sectors. Coming around towards, oh my God, he holds nothing back through turn 18 as well. Kimi Antonelli across the line, a 10th of a second from Lando Norris. I think actually was a little bit out of shape through the final sector there. Whew. My goodness me, Kimi Antonelli is absolutely finding some pace inside of that Mercedes car all of a sudden. And we have our bottom 5 then, with everybody having put together a lap time. Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Gasly and Tsunoda are bottom 5 at the moment. Remember, you guys predicted Yuki Tsunoda to be having a good surprise this weekend. Not so much of a good surprise if he drops out in Q1. He is currently on an out lap, though, as Yuki Tsunoda. He's making his way around turn 4 through to turn 5, just getting out of the way of Lewis Hamilton as he comes through as well. Max Verstappen is coming around to set another flying lap. Hulkenberg and Bortoleto both down in the bottom 5 at the moment. They're making their way out of the pits. Leaving it a little bit late, though. 2 minutes on the board. It is about a 2-minute outlap here in Singapore. You can see flying laps in the 129s, 130s. So you're looking at sort of a 2-minute outlap. Anybody coming out of the pits right now is going to have to get a little bit of a move on. Albon, Sainz, Lawson, they're just coming towards the end of the pit lane. They're certainly going to have to go for it on this outlap. As Fernando Alonso makes his way past the pit exit on his flying lap. Here comes Lewis Hamilton through the middle sector. He's just a 100th of a second down on Lando Norris's current pole position time, and the track is certainly evolving then. We're seeing a lot of cars improving their times pretty considerably, and maybe also just finding a little bit of confidence inside of that car. Lewis Hamilton, a very quick final sector from Lewis Hamilton, and a 1:29.7 from him. It was looking like a good lap, and it certainly is. Lance Stroll only goes 14th fastest, and I don't know, I was expecting the Aston Martins to be kicking a little bit here. Lance Stroll is under pressure there. That is not a quick time at all, with Bortoleto, Hülkenberg, Ocon, Gasly and Tsunoda still to come. Yuki Tsunoda currently 20th, coming around turn 4 on your pictures right now. Down towards turn 5, gets that right-hander, just has to nail the apex inside of that Red Bull car. Oscar Piastri improves up into 6th place on the board. And Tsunoda is quicker than Colapinto through the first sector, but not by a ridiculous margin. Still got some work to do as the Japanese driver, as he has to maneuver his way around a Ferrari. There's now also a yellow flag being thrown. It's Pierre Gasly, who's made a mistake at turn 11, 12. We will catch that, and is Gasly into the barriers. So everybody coming through there now, and that's going to slow down Tsunoda because of the yellow flags. So I think Tsunoda is going to have to have slowed down for the yellow flags, and that's going to be him. Done and dusted. I lost everything. The steering is heavy, possibly a hydraulic issue for Pierre Gasly, but yellow flag is still flying, so nobody is going to be improving through that middle part of the lap. Tsunoda's now coming around turn 18, 19. Did Tsunoda slow down enough through that middle sector, though? Tsunoda comes across the line, takes 10th fastest, and moves Franco Colapinto down into that bottom 5. We know Pierre Gasly is going to be out as well. Gabriel Bortoleto is just coming around turn 14. And Bortoleto improving through Sector 1 and Sector 2. Esteban Ocon was slower through that middle part of the lap, though. So it doesn't look like he's going to improve. I think Franco Colapinto... Is Colapinto on a flying lap? No, he is most certainly not. So Franco Colapinto out. Pierre Gasly out. Bortoleto out. Lance Stroll is going to be out as well, as Nico Hülkenberg gets himself up into 13th spot. And Esteban Ocon can't improve. Stays 19th fastest. So it is Bortoleto, Stroll, Colapinto, Ocon and Gasly who are out of qualifying. Interesting to see what happens to Pierre Gasly there, as we see the onboard coming down towards turn 11. He's fairly slow through turn 10, and then, yeah, just has absolutely nothing. And parks it near an exit just on the outside of sort of turn 12 there. Pierre Gasly, or the inside, sorry, of turn 12. Lance Stroll brushing the barriers. But it wasn't good enough. Only 17th fastest, and Colapinto also does the same. He maneuvers his Alpine a little bit too close to the wall. And Bortoleto had to slow down through that middle sector as well. So a lot of people losing out there because of Franco Colapinto. Because of Pierre Gasly, looking at the other Alpine, because of Pierre Gasly coming to a stop there at turn 11, turn 12, the yellow flags flying, costing everybody quite a bit of lap time. And it's a little bit of a drab end if you're a Bortoleto or an Ocon fan. They couldn't really do too much with that. Bortoleto not out by much, 4 thousandths of a second between him and Albon. If he hadn't have had to have lifted through that yellow flag, probably would have been there. But if buts and maybes, Alex Albon takes the 15th place and moves through to Q2. It was Lewis Hamilton, fastest of anybody in that Q1 session. George Russell ended up second fastest just behind him. Lando Norris was third fastest. Verstappen fourth. Antonelli fifth. Isaac Hadjar looks to be a real handful here. I think he could have a very, very good race if he qualifies well. And it's looking like he's going to qualify well. He was sixth fastest in that first qualifying session. Piastri, Leclerc, Behrman and Tsunoda inside of the top 10. As we head into Q2 then, Carlos Sainz, Liam Lawson, Nico Hulkenberg, Fernando Alonso and Alex Albon still in, but need to improve if they want to enter the final part of qualifying. We're now looking for that top 10 for the final showdown and a pole position possibility. Lots of violations there, though. Antonelli, Albon, Ocon, Hamilton, Sainz, and Russell all ending up with track limits violations. I imagine more so for getting out of the way of other cars rather than actually running wide. There's not many places on this track you can run wide without smacking your car into a barrier. So yeah, Yuki Tsunoda did well there, actually. Getting up into 10th place. High pressure scenario. Needed to deliver a lap time as 20th. And knew that all eyes were going to be on him, you know. We expect a Colapinto or a Bortoleto or sometimes a Stroll and an Ocon to kind of be down there in that bottom five. Should not be a Red Bull and Yuki Tsunoda, should it? How did Gasly crash? It wasn't really a crash from Gasly. Just a fault inside of the car. Just came around turn 10. Hit the accelerator, but nothing happened inside of the Alpine and just came to a stop. Didn't hit the barriers or anything. Literally just rolled the car to a stop on the turn 11, turn 12, near the outside of the track, near one of the runoff areas. And yeah, Lance Stroll not very happy at all. I think again that track evolution, you know, you set your standard out, you make sure that you have a lap in early, but actually everybody was improving a considerable amount as the track started to bed in more and more with the soft compound tires. Okay, he does lift. Battle of the tractors. Goodness me. Just trying to see though. Oh, this is the replay of I was wondering why they were showing this replay. It's the replay of Albon going wide and then the yellow flags being waved as Oscar Piastri had to slow down on his what should have been his first flying lap, but the lap he then ended up not giving a go. Gasly's car still being maneuvered, so we've got a little tiny bit of a delay just whilst they move Pierre Gasly's car away from anything else. But as much as Gasly's kind of parked it near an exit, he hasn't really parked it in a nice way. The exit is perpendicular to where Gasly has parked his car, so they're having to roll Gasly's car kind of back onto the circuit and then swing it around to move it off of the track. So although I appreciate Gasly coming to a stop somewhere safe and not slowing the qualifying laps of everybody else too much, especially not sort of causing a red flag or anything, but hasn't done the marshals too much of a favour as Pierre Gasly. So a little bit of a delay to the start of Q2. What do we think then? Can any of those five that are currently highlighted in red, Sainz, Lawson, Hulkenberg, Alonso, Albon, can they get themselves into the top 10? I think Lawson can. Behrman, I'm not expecting to be in there. So if Behrman can get inside of that top 10, I'd be very, very impressed indeed. Of course, it's your sort of usual suspects. You've got your two McLarens. You've got your two Ferraris. You've got your possibility of two Mercedes cars. You've got your possibility of two Red Bull cars. So it's kind of picking your best of the rests. Hadjar feels like he's going to be inside of that top 10 if everything goes fairly well. Behrman, Sainz, Lawson, Alonso, I was saying that I was expecting to maybe see an Aston Martin inside of the top 10 as well. But Alonso not looking anywhere near as swift as he did on a Friday. I think that's become a little bit of a thing inside of the Aston Martin team, hasn't it? They often have a fairly decent Friday on tracks that should suit them. You know, like last time around, we were in Baku, fair enough, was not expecting much from the Aston Martin cars at all that weekend. Similar to the weekend before in Monza, not expecting too much from the Aston Martin cars there. But this weekend in Singapore should be a track that kind of suits the Aston Martin car a little bit better. Not really seeing much of that as Lance Stroll is out and Fernando Alonso is 14th fastest of anybody. So still a little bit of work to do for Fernando Alonso and the Aston Martin fans out there who will be hoping for the Spaniard to be inside of the top 10 and getting some points on the board tomorrow. Dun, 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 dun. Here we go. The Silver Sauber scored only 5 points. Or 7. What on earth you want about? I missed it. This is the first time a second Red Bull qualified out of Q1. Most definitely not. When's the start of Q2? It will start at 9:31 local time, so 3 minutes time. We're just waiting for Pierre Gasly's car to be maneuvered away from the front of turn 11. Was where he came to a stop. Well, between turn 11 and turn 12. Daniel Ricciardo's lap time. I think it's Lando Norris still. Daniel Ricciardo got the fastest lap here, but the fastest lap during the race here, the fastest actual lap was Lando Norris, and that is the lap record as well. Because they've taken away that little section of track, obviously the lap is way quicker than it used to be anyway. So Lando Norris holds the lap record around here from last year's qualifying, where he was on pole position. Who do I think will get pole? Before the session, I said George Russell. I said Lando Norris. But now, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell are causing me a little bit of a headache. The Ferrari's looking quicker than I thought. The Mercedes is looking way quicker than I thought. I thought we were going to have Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, probably front row lockout, maybe a Max Verstappen between the two of them in some capacity. Then I imagined it was going to be probably the two Ferraris just behind, then Russell, then like an Antonelli or a Hadjar or a Lawson, then maybe a Tsunoda. That was my predictions before the qualifying got underway. But as I said, Ferrari is surprising me. Mercedes are surprising me. I think we're going to have a real battle on our hands. If Hamilton and Russell can kind of keep up this pace, what are we going to have? Maybe a five-way battle for pole position, where we've got Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, maybe a Russell, maybe one of the Ferrari, maybe both of the Ferraris, maybe a six-way battle for pole position here, if it remains as it is right now. Important question, why is Red Bull blue? I mean, Red Bull's packaging is also blue. It's a Red Bull on the logo, but all of the cans and stuff are like blue and silver. So, yeah. Ask Red Bull. They've never actually had red as their color, have they? Because, like, even old school Red Bull cans, I think, are gold. Like, Red Bull has always never been red. Like, even the liquid itself isn't red. So why are they Red Bulls? Now you've got me questioning it. These are the difficult questions we answer between qualifying sessions. I've only got 13 seconds before Q2 gets underway. How am I supposed to answer that? It's a deep philosophical question. Why have the Red Bull team, and why has Red Bull in general, never really had anything to do with red? It's interesting. But we are underway for Q2. I know the bulls are red, but nothing else is red. The can's not red. Their logo isn't. I know their logo. Well, their logo's red and gold. The liquid is gold or yellow coloured. I don't know. I know the bull on the tin is red, but nothing else is red. Like, it doesn't link to anything else about the brand or anything else about anything else. Oh, they've delayed it for an extra minute whilst cars are already on the track. Oh, Max Verstappen is not going to be very happy about that. Verstappen at the front of the queue in the pit lane, and they have now delayed the start of Q2 by another minute. So we have got another minute. Exactly. The can is blue. The liquid is yellow. None of it's red. Just the bull is red. They've really lent into red, like red being in the name. But nothing else is red other than the bull. It's weird. Also, Ford next year, their main colour is blue. True. There you go. Makes more sense. We have got cars out on track, though. Max Verstappen making his way through the first sector. He's going to be the first driver to set a flying lap time. Ollie Behrman following behind him. Isaac Hadjar out on track as well. Albon and Sainz deciding to come out side by side. Carlos Sainz actually very slow out of the pit exit. Maybe just giving Alex Albon a little bit of breathing space ahead of him. Fernando Alonso also moving as slowly as humanly possible to the end of the pit exit. Are my fingers okay? Yeah. Why would my fingers not be okay? What do you know that I don't? Soft compound tyres onto the cars. Max Verstappen a fresh set of softs. Be interesting to see who does indeed go for a used set of softs. I can see Liam Lawson has come out on a used set of softs as well. Don't think anybody else has so far. Hamilton and Leclerc coming to the end of the pit lane now. Here comes George Russell. George Russell on a slightly scrubbed set of soft compound tyres. But everyone generally going for a fresh set of soft compound tyres very early on. Let's see what happens here. Max Verstappen going to be the first car to set a flying lap time. Ollie Behrman just behind him. Saw a black band across my hand. Oh, it's probably, I'm just fiddling with it's a wire thing. Here we go then. Max Verstappen through turn 8 and turn 9. Verstappen sets the standard at a 26.6 through the first sector. Behrman and Hadjar. Behrman a 10th behind Verstappen. Well, half a 10th behind Verstappen. Hadjar about a 10th and a half. As they come through the first sector, Alex Albon also can't match Verstappen through the first sector. Verstappen then sets the standard through the middle sector at 37 seconds, 0.665. Fastest of anybody so far, of course. The only driver to have completed that middle part of the lap, apart from Ollie Behrman now, who sets a 38 dead. So it's pretty slow from Ollie Behrman, unfortunately, through the middle part of the lap from the Briton. And Verstappen, a 129.7 is a good yardstick to set for the rest of the field. Lewis Hamilton now coming down towards turn 1, following behind Max Verstappen as he was completing that flying lap and starting the flying lap of his own. Coming through turn 4 and turn 5. Is Verstappen going to move out of the way of Lewis Hamilton? quite possibly soon. Charles Leclerc also starts his flying lap for the Ferrari team. Here comes Alex Albon across the line, his fourth fastest of anybody so far. So it's Hajar, Behrman, Albon in that order, second, third, and fourth. Again, we're just looking for a top 10 here. So we're really focusing in mainly on those midfield drivers to see who can really jump up into the top 10 and not be in that bottom 5. Carlos Sainz is just a touch slower than Isaac Hajar, about a tenth of a second between Hajar and Sainz. So Hajar still best of the rest right now as Fernando Alonso, the other Spaniard, slots in also just behind Isaac Hajar, a hundredth of a second between the Frenchman and the Spaniard, but still Hajar best of the rest at the moment. Yuki Tsunoda can't get anywhere close to Max Verstappen's time and is then outdone by Liam Lawson. Lawson only 6th fastest though. Yuki Tsunoda down in 7th. And these are the cars that we're expecting to be up towards Verstappen's time more so. Hamilton, Russell, Norris, Antonelli, Piastri now starting to put together their lap times. Russell actually fastest of anybody through the first sector. You can see that highlighted in purple there. George Russell 10th fastest at the moment on our screens, but has not yet set a lap time. It's fairly decent through the middle sector as well from George Russell, a 38 dead from him. And we're looking for it. How is it going to turn out? Kimi Antonelli, quickest of anybody through the middle part of the lap. George Russell, only 4th fastest in the end. Second and third sectors nowhere near as tidy as the first. Kimi Antonelli, though, carrying his speed through the second sector. Can he get closer to Max Verstappen? Yes, indeed. He's within a tenth of a second of Max Verstappen's current top lap time. If I super chat $500, will you show your feet? Yes, for £500. What are you on? Oscar Piastri then goes quickest of anybody through the middle part of the lap. Charles Leclerc decided to abandon his lap partway through. So Leclerc having to go again. Alex Albon has also dropped down into that bottom 5. He's now joined with Yuki Tsunoda as Oscar Piastri goes to within a tenth of a second. Piastri there then. Oh, and Kimi Antonelli's lap time was deleted. Kimi Antonelli track limits violation at turn 2 as well. So very early on in there as well. Charles Leclerc had to abandon it. Kimi Antonelli lap time deleted. And Lewis Hamilton also yet to set a flying lap time. Here he comes. 3rd fastest goes Lewis Hamilton. And he's just under 2/10 away from Max Verstappen's time. We're expecting Charles Leclerc to also get up into that top 10 in a couple of corners' time. Leclerc just coming through turn 16 and 17. He's 14th fastest at the moment. But this will put Ollie Behrman, his teammate, for... Ooh. And a 130.4 from Charles Leclerc. I wasn't looking at his sector times. I was just sort of expecting him to get up into the top 10, but he only slots into 13th place, does Charles Leclerc. 7.5 tenths away from it. What happened to Charles Leclerc? Oh, and Lewis Hamilton, I think, kisses the wall there a touch. Lewis Hamilton certainly has some time to find through that middle part of the lap. Here comes Charles Leclerc then. Was this? Oh, and yes, Charles Leclerc did indeed bounce his Ferrari up against the barriers. And that's where he lost a good half a second or more. And here comes Kimi Antonelli. Let's have a little look at this. Oh, it was marginal. The tiniest of margins that cost Kimi Antonelli through turn 2. But if all 4 wheels were off of the racetrack, then that is a track limits infringement. And it would have been for milliseconds maybe that all 4 of those wheels would have been off the race circuit. Charles Leclerc getting the 0 centimeters as he away from the barriers there. Kimi out? Not yet, not yet. We've got 6 minutes, sorry, 6 minutes left of the qualifying session. Max Verstappen fastest of anybody. Piastri, Hamilton, Norris inside of that top 4. Isaac Hadjar still sitting best of the rest. Fernando Alonso inside of the top 10 as well. George Russell, Carlos Sainz, Nico Hülkenberg and Ollie Behrman currently making their way through to Q3. Lawson, Tsunoda, Leclerc, Albon and Antonelli, the drivers that need to improve. Lawson, 0.04 of a second off Ollie Behrman's lap times. That is what the RB car is looking for minimum. But Ollie Behrman, I'm sure, will improve on that lap time as well. George Russell is on an outlap. Yuki Tsunoda's currently on an outlap. Albon and Antonelli making their way. Oh, sorry, Antonelli is first in the queue. Antonelli was out. Then Russell, Tsunoda, Verstappen, Albon, Sainz and Hadjar are just coming towards the end of the pit lane. And Charles Leclerc, a new front wing for that Ferrari car then. So it must have been a little bit of damage to the left side of that front wing. Lando Norris shuffling forwards in the queue in the pit lane. So is Fernando Alonso just behind. Still quite a few drivers ahead of them though. Sainz has just come out of the pits, but Hadjar, Behrman, Lawson still ahead of Norris in the queue. So we won't see the McLaren car for a little while. Is Charles out? Absolutely not. No. Don't worry, Sarah. Antonelli's lap time was deleted. Yeah, it was 129.8 from Kimi Antonelli, though. So it was very, very competitive. It was closer. Well, would have put him third fastest at this point in time, I think. I don't quite think it was quicker than Piastri's, but I don't remember the exact hundredths and thousandths that Kimi Antonelli did. But lap time was deleted. And Antonelli needs to improve. It's actually a little bit slower from Kimi Antonelli through that first sector. Still competitive enough, though. Gets a little bit out of shape in the middle part of the lap as well, though. He gets a little bit closer to the wall than he would have wanted to out of the exit. Turn 9 through turn 10, 11, 12. He comes, the Italian. Nice and sweeping through there around turn 13. Then you get the DRS open down towards 14 and the final sector. Let's see what Antonelli's time is like through the middle part of the lap. He's fastest of anybody through the middle part of the lap. George Russell actually quickest of anybody in the first sector. So the Mercedes car certainly turning up to this weekend all of a sudden. Both looking very swift indeed. Antonelli curving his way through 16 and 17. Couple of corners left then, 18 and 19. Almost one long corner the way that they join up. And Kimi Antonelli goes quickest of anybody at 129.6. There's a way of responding to your lap time being deleted, isn't there? Going fastest of anybody. George Russell also fairly decent through the middle part of the lap, but quickest in the first sector was the Briton. Currently 8th fastest on the timing sheets at the moment, looking to improve and looking like he's going to improve fairly considerably. Round turn 18 and 19 he comes and does indeed improve on his teammate as well to go fastest of anybody. Those new tyres on George Russell's car really doing the business for him. George Russell, though, under investigation for a yellow flag infringement. Let's see how that plays out. Max Verstappen just coming around the final couple of corners to start a flying lap. Alex Albon, though, 15th fastest at the moment. Alex Albon coming through the middle part of the lap. Needs something a little bit special. Ooh, a 130.2 from Alex Albon. That puts him 9th fastest. And I'm not sure if that's going to be absolutely the lap time to get him through. Looking at some of the cars that are coming around, you've got Hülkenberg and Sainz and Behrman, Lawson, Sonoda, Leclerc in particular, still to put a final flying lap in. Here comes Isaac Hadjar, doesn't improve on 7th place. Isaac Hadjar stays where he is then, just ahead of Fernando Alonso. As I say that, just ahead of Ollie Behrman. Behrman comes across the line to go 8th fastest and put Alex Albon right on that bubble. This is what I meant where I said I don't think that's good enough from Alex Albon, because he is 10th fastest now, with Sainz, Hulkenberg, Lawson, Sonoda and Leclerc still to come. Here comes Lando Norris. Only 4th fastest from Lando Norris, and maybe the McLarens I was overestimating coming into this weekend, because Russell, Verstappen, Antonelli quicker than Norris and Piastri at the moment. Hamilton then a 10th behind as well, although Hamilton was quickest of anybody through Q1. It's really starting to evolve, this qualifying session, and the ebbs and flows of who's quickest. Of course, we are more focused on the bottom part of the timing sheets. Ollie Behrman drops down into 9th place. Alex Albon still 10th. But here comes Charles Leclerc. Yuki Tsunoda has come into the pits, so Tsunoda is out. Sonoda made a mistake and is going to be out of qualifying. Charles Leclerc, though, is the man that I've got my eye on. Still down in 15th place for Ferrari. It was a poor first sector from Charles Leclerc. And Nico Hulkenberg has just put himself into the top 10, only to be displaced by Charles Leclerc. He goes 6th fastest, 3.5 tenths off the pole lap from George Russell. And Hulkenberg drops down into 11th spot. Albon down into 12th place. Carlos Sainz is just coming into the pits, so he's not going to improve. And I think Liam Lawson is also on a fairly slow lap. He is indeed. So that is everyone done and dusted. Hulkenberg, Albon, Sainz, Lawson and Sonoda, the 5 drivers to drop out. They drop out with Bortoleto, Stroll, Colapinto, Ocon and Gasly, who were the 5 drivers to drop out in Q1. So their positions for tomorrow's race are locked in. Hulkenberg will start 11th, Albon 12th, Sainz 13th, Lawson 14th, Sonoda 15th. Then Bortoleto, Stroll, Colapinto, Ocon and Gasly in 16th down to 20th place. It's the top 10 shootout then, ladies and gentlemen. Who are we predicting then? Hamilton was quickest of anybody in Q1. Russell was quickest of anybody in Q2. I've been told that the McLaren team are going to be far and away from everybody this weekend. Who is going to pick up that pole position? You've got to get your predictions in now. None of this getting your predictions in after they've done a couple of laps. None of that. Get your predictions in the chat right now. Who is getting pole position? Russell, Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Hamilton, Hadjar. Who do you think is going to pick up that pole position? Let me know. Whilst you're there as well, if you could hit the like on the stream. If you are watching on YouTube, maybe hit the follow button. If you're watching over on Twitch, I think we're nearing like 650 followers over on Twitch. We're nearing 130,000 subscribers, 140,000 subscribers, 140,000 subscribers. I get mixed up between us and Crash Happy. Crash Happy, we're trying to go for 10k before the end of the year. I think we should certainly be able to do that. So we're trying to get 10k. We're on 7,500 subscribers over on Crash Happy. 2,500 of you just need to go over there, hit the subscribe button over on the Crash Happy podcast channel. That would make my day. We're trying to hit 150,000 subscribers on this channel before the end of the season, though. So make sure you are subscribed. Hit the like button. All good stuff. Seeing a lot of Maxes in the chat, a lot of Russells in the chat, and Antonelli, and Leclerc, and Alonso in terms of the predictions as to who is going to hit that pole position lap time. Ollie, my goat. Leclerc. No, George Russell ain't getting pole. Russell, Max, Lewis, Charles. Okay. It's a real mix of who people think will get that final pole position. I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty tight. I think it's going to be pretty damn tight. Looking at those lap times, Russell, Verstappen, Antonelli all within a tenth of a second. Norris and Piastri just behind another tenth and a half or so behind Antonelli's lap time. The Ferraris seem to drop off a touch there. but that might have just been because they kind of had it done. Like Hamilton's first lap was pretty solid, and then Charles Leclerc just had to get a lap time on the board, so was maybe holding back a touch just to make sure he didn't make any egregious errors to get himself through. Hadjar, Alonso, Behrman as well. The battle of the best of the rest in 8th, 9th and 10th place. Ollie Behrman, by the way, doing an absolutely sensational job. I was not predicting anything from the Haas team this weekend. I thought Haas might really struggle to compete in Singapore this weekend. I thought they'd be, behind the RBs, behind the Aston Martins, behind the Williamses. I was expecting to be better than the Haas car as well, but Behrman pulling out a lap and getting himself up into the top 10. Very, very solid indeed. Hülkenberg was 11th fastest, just missed out 0.06 of a second between Behrman and Hülkenberg there in 10th and 11th spot. I don't know, slightly frustrating for Williams maybe. They weren't expecting too much, The last couple of tracks in Monza and Azerbaijan certainly went a little bit more in the favour of the Williams cars, didn't they? And I think they can't be too upset considering they did get a podium place last time around with Carlos Sainz, but 12th and 13th for them. Liam Lawson I'm pretty gutted with. I thought Liam Lawson might be up into the top 10. Was expecting a lot from him. Was very good here a couple of years ago in that sister Red Bull. And then Yuki Tsunoda, another mistake from the Japanese driver. Q2, 15th place for him. Again, I was just hoping he'd pick up a bit of momentum. A 6th place finish in Azerbaijan last time around for Yuki Tsunoda. But now has just thrown it in the bin once again. Looks to be struggling inside of that Red Bull once more. Maybe it's just the Red Bull car is fairly decent in Azerbaijan, because like Sergio Perez was always really good in Azerbaijan as well, wasn't he? So you could only be good in Azerbaijan if you're in the second Red Bull seat. Every other race of the season is just going to be an absolute nightmare for you. I will finish my assignments if Alonso is in pole. If not, I'll do it tomorrow. Wow. I think you're going to be doing it tomorrow, to be honest. But I think that's you just trying to put it off, isn't it? Because you could do it today. Do it today. Always, if you got the opportunity to do something today, do it today. Try and get it done. That's the teacher and me talking. When does Q3 start? We are a couple of minutes away, really. 1 minute and 22 seconds by the live stream that I am currently watching on Now TV. What the hell is Behrman doing in Q3? That's what I mean. I don't know how he did it. Just turned up, did Ollie Behrman. Very, very solid lap from him indeed. I know it was only hundredths of a second between him and Hülkenberg, but that is the margins at the moment, to be honest. Like the margins between the midfield teams. So it's interesting. We'll kind of see. I bet 450 on Max. Look, if you've got that kind of money, you need to be sending in a super chat. I don't know. If you got that kind of money to hand, you need to be supporting the creators that you watch. Because I would love to do this full time, But instead, I've got to go back to work on Monday. Imagine if I didn't have to go back to work on Monday, If it is Max Verstappen, you get a little payout from that 450 bet. Just saying. Send some my way. I hope it's a Ferrari. Will Charles leave Ferrari? I don't think so. I don't think so. Not anytime soon, anyway. Here we are, then. Q3, 12 minutes on the clock. Green light is shown, and Ollie Behrman, the first driver to get out on track. George Russell just behind him. Kimi Antonelli as well in the queue. So it's going to be Behrman, Russell and Antonelli to set the standard here. The final part of qualifying. But everybody, I imagine, is going to be out fairly swiftly. As I said, there's a sort of 2 minute or so warm-up lap around here. So You have to get the tyres into the right position. Takes a little while to get around the streets of Singapore before you can then set a flying lap time. Looking at 120, sort of the late 120s as your lap times here this year. Will Hadjar go to Red Bull? Yeah, I think so. Certainly at some point, even if it's not next year. I could see it happening maybe the year after, possibly 2027, you know. Could see an Isaac Hadjar in a Red Bull suit. I think it's going to happen at some point with the way he's driving at the minute, sooner rather than later. Lando Norris then out on track as we see Oscar Piastri, current championship leader, also make his way into the pit lane, followed by Max Verstappen. So Verstappen deciding to go behind Oscar Piastri in the running order, and actually Lando Norris going very early indeed, ahead of both of the Ferraris. So the two Ferraris are going to split Norris and Piastri's lap times. I think this is pretty unpredictable at this point. Verstappen, Russell, Antonelli, Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, even Hamilton at points has been very, very quick throughout these qualifying sessions. Was there any red flags in Q2? There was no red flags in Q2. I don't think we're going to see a red flag, to be honest with you. Everyone's been fairly calm. There's been a couple of brushes with the wall, but nothing anywhere close to what we saw in Baku a couple of weeks ago. George Russell then setting a flying lap time. Ollie Behrman, a 26.7 through the first sector. Sets the standard then inside of the Haas car. George Russell coming around turn 6 is surely going to go quicker than the Haas, and does indeed, goes 0.3 of a second quicker than the Haas through the first sector. So Ollie Behrman losing 0.3 to George Russell just through the first 6 corners. It's going to be tough for Ollie Behrman to really mix it in with pole position, isn't it? But I think just getting into the top 10 for Ollie Behrman is more than enough for what he can do. Ollie Behrman, a 38.0 through the middle part of the lap. Keep an eye on Isaac Hadjar and Fernando Alonso if you want to see where Ollie Behrman is probably going to end up in this qualifying session. George Russell, though, a 37.4. So again, another 0.6 of a second quicker through the middle sector, and just showing the difference between the Mercedes and the Haas car at this point in qualifying, when they really do turn up the heat inside of those top teams. Oh, and George Russell gets a little bit wide on the exit of turn 17, brushes the wall, and it's a 129.1 from George Russell, and very nearly a George Russell into the barriers. There were millimeters between him and a broken front right wheel. Kimi Antonelli also gets incredibly close to the exact same wall on the exit of turn 17, and is 0.4 of a second slower than his teammate. Ollie Behrman was a second slower than George Russell. So those first 3 have come around. Lando Norris has just gone through the middle sector and is 3.5 down on George Russell's time. The McLaren car not looking anywhere as speedy as we were expecting it to. And McLaren have kind of hit a little bit of a lull in the season after being so dominant in the first half of the year. We haven't quite seen the same McLaren since the summer break. Lando Norris comes around the final corner. It's only 3rd fastest and 0.4 down on George Russell's time. That's a lot of lap time to find for Lando Norris if he's going to get anywhere close to pole position in this one. Isaac Hadjar has gone quicker than Ollie Behrman in the best of the rest battle. Charles Leclerc goes 4th fastest to displace Isaac Hadjar, though. Fernando Alonso was the slowest of the 3 midfield cars. It's Hadjar, Behrman, Alonso in 5th, 6th and 7th, until Lewis Hamilton comes across the line to go 4th fastest. And again, 5.5. George Russell seems to have really cooked up something a bit special there. Max Verstappen is getting close to it as he goes purple in the middle sector. Here comes Oscar Piastri, goes second fastest, but still 3.5 tenths off of the lap time of George Russell. It's still a long way off, and a lot of lap time to find for Oscar Piastri. And here comes Max Verstappen. He gets closest to George Russell and is 0.2 of a second down. George Russell then, provisional pole position, and George Russell was absolutely on the limit. As I say, brushed the wall on the exit of turn 17, did George Russell. So Russell suddenly has come to life. The Mercedes cars clicking into gear. And here's the replay of that. George Russell through turn 16. So clear. Gets on the power really early through 17. And he will have felt that inside of the car. A real brush with the wall, but kept his foot planted, did George Russell. It's very lucky that that rear right tyre didn't give way. Like, it was a proper shunt into the barriers from George Russell, but bounced off of it and through to put the fastest lap in. So it is Russell, Verstappen, Piastri, Antonelli, Norris, Hamilton, Leclerc, Hadjar, Behrman, Alonso. How the grid currently looks for tomorrow. Isaac Hadjar is best of the rest in 8th place at the moment, missing only one of the big boys. Yuki Tsunoda down in 15th place from the top 4 teams. Also, the Williams cars both out of the points, playing into RB's hands. It's a long way between RB and Williams, but they also need to keep an eye on Aston Martin, just 10 points behind them in the constructor standings. The fastest Aston Martin currently 10th, Fernando Alonso. Just, well, a couple of tenths off, actually, Ollie Behrman. So Ollie Behrman and Fernando Alonso maybe just happy to be part of the top 10 more than anything else. Please nerf McLaren further. I mean, they've nerfed themselves pretty significantly. We were all expecting the McLaren cars to be very dominant here. You look at how quick Lando Norris was here last season. You look at the fact that they've won the majority of races this year. I know Verstappen and Russell have a few wins apiece, but Piastri and Norris have been top step of the podium more often than anyone else. And Piastri and Norris, 3rd and 5th fastest. And again, it's that championship battle. Lando Norris, 25 points behind Oscar Piastri. Needs a little bit to go in his favour. 7 races to go. So does only need, what, 3 or 4 points per race on his teammate. But still would hope that he is closing that gap a little bit more quickly than just 3 or 4 points per weekend. And Piastri, 3rd fastest ahead of Lando Norris at the moment anyway. And Norris has actually come out very early in the queue. So Ollie Behrman is first out of the pits again. We've then got Norris, and Hadjar is out of the pits. Charles Leclerc is 4th on track at the moment. He's 7th fastest inside of that Ferrari. Charles Leclerc really not clicking with that Ferrari at all. George Russell just coming around turn 5. Kimi Antonelli there as well. 4th fastest at the moment, the Italian, just coming towards turn 4. Fernando Alonso at the end of the pit lane. And again, Piastri and Verstappen deciding to be last of the runners. So as I say, it's going to be Behrman, then Norris, then Hadjar, Leclerc, Russell, Antonelli, Alonso, Hamilton, Piastri, Verstappen is going to be the final, sorry, not fastest. Well, he might be fastest, but the final car across the start-finish line. So Behrman now starts his final flying lap, and so does Lando Norris. Here we go then, Lando. 2 minutes on the clock, your final chance to set a flying lap time. Let's see what it's like. Oscar Piastri has to move out of the way of his teammate through turn 4, gets out of the way of him. Piastri going a lot later in the running order. Isaac Hadjar has started his flying lap as well, so keep an eye on Isaac Hadjar's lap time for best of the rest. But we're going to keep an eye on Lando Norris specifically. It's a slow first sector, 2/10 down through the first sector is Lando Norris. He's certainly not going to trouble George Russell, but needs to gain at least a 1/10 of a second to be closer to Oscar Piastri. Piastri currently third fastest, and Piastri yet to be on his second flying lap. Lando Norris, though, coming through turn 11 and 12. Charles Leclerc also starting his flying lap. He's going down towards turn 6, so keep an eye on Charles Leclerc's first sector time. It's an improvement from Charles Leclerc, but still 2/10 down on George Russell. George Russell looking very solid for pole position right now. As I say, Piastri and Verstappen still to come, though. George Russell is on his flying lap. Let's see what George Russell's lap time is like. Much better. A little bit slower through the first sector than himself, George Russell, but still way quicker than Norris and Leclerc. Norris's second sector is also only a 37.4. Norris to the line, stays 5th fastest. Is not going to improve on 5th. Charles Leclerc to come then, and Charles Leclerc is 4.5 temps down on Russell through the middle part of the lap. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton could displace Lando Norris and make his weekend even worse. Let's see. As we go, Lewis Hamilton is starting his flying lap, just coming through the first sector now. George Russell has gone quicker than himself through the middle part of the lap. Is a purple middle sector from George Russell, but here comes Charles Leclerc, stays 7th fastest. And inside of the car, you can see the frustration from Charles Leclerc, not very happy at all. Kimi Antonelli does not improve through the middle sector either. And Piastri, 26.6, but here comes George Russell around the final corner, improves by 7 thousandths of a second and is on provisional pole by just a touch. Max Verstappen needs 2/10 of a second. Piastri needs 4/10 of a second. Here comes Kimi Antonelli. He stays 4th fastest of anybody. Oscar Piastri is just making his way through the middle part of the lap. Lewis Hamilton has improved through the middle part of the lap, but was actually slower than himself through the first part, so did not improve through the first sector. Oscar Piastri isn't improving ridiculously through the middle part of the lap either, so Max Verstappen feels like the only driver who's within contention. Lewis Hamilton stays 6th fastest. Max Verstappen then, through the middle part of the lap, is a 10.5 down, so he's within touching distance, but needs an absolutely phenomenal final part of the lap, does Max Verstappen. Turn 16 and 17 need to be utterly perfect, close to the wall as possible. And that's the thing, George Russell was just willing to get a little bit closer to the barriers, and I think he's backed off Max Verstappen. He doesn't think he's going to improve. Piastri didn't either, and George Russell takes pole position for tomorrow's Singapore Grand Prix. It's going to be George Russell starting on the front row next to Max Verstappen in second place. Oscar Piastri down in third. Kimi Antonelli in fourth. Lando Norris in fifth. Keep getting George Russell and Lando Norris mixed up. Lando Norris in fifth place. Then both of the Ferraris, Hamilton and Leclerc, in sixth and seventh. Isaac Hadjar did remain best of the rest in eighth spot. Ollie Behrman in ninth, and Fernando Alonso inside of the top 10, but only just. Quick reminder of the other ones that just dropped out. Outside of the top 10, Nico Hülkenberg was 11th fastest, Alex Albon was 12th fastest, Carlos Sainz 13th fastest, Lawson and Tsunoda 14th and 15th, so they'll start there for tomorrow's Grand Prix. And Bortoleto was the first driver to drop out in Q1. He'll start 16th fastest, 16th for tomorrow's race. The penultimate row of the grid is Lance Stroll and Franco Colapinto, and at the back of the pack is Ocon and Gasly. So they are our drivers for tomorrow's Grand Prix, and they are the positions. Called it. A lot of people did have Russell there, to be fair. He kind of turned up today. And Piastri on the radio saying that he just didn't really have much more in the tank. His McLaren not feeling as planted and as comfortable as it usually does. starts inside of the podium places, does Oscar Piastri, but he'll have his teammate right behind him. It will be Lando Norris staring at the rear wing of Oscar Piastri, who will also be right behind George Russell in first spot, and we will be live for it tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. If you fancy it, we had an interview with Arava on Monday that came out on the Crash Happy YouTube channel on Wednesday. So click the link in the description, head over to the Crash Happy channel, or just search for Crash Happy Podcast in YouTube. Head over to that channel, watch that interview with Arava. It was a very interesting discussion that we had with him, and it really does support the channel. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers over on there. But I will be back live again once more tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you for the Singapore Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen and George Russell start side by side on the front row of the grid. Could it be more dramatic? I don't think so. I cannot wait for it. I'll see you then.